Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we're taking a look at the Fire's Bane. This is a roleplay build, so it is not one that is made for, I would say, running trials or, yeah, just trials themselves. I would play this primarily in Overland, Delves, public dungeons, world bosses, and dungeons and arenas. And I would say it excels at playing in dungeons and arenas especially, and that's because of the way it's built. So let's go ahead and take a look at the build, starting with, of course, our character screen. So you can see I'm an Argonian Dragon Knight with this build. Argonian isn't the best. High Elf is definitely a better option, but Argonian does get some racial benefits that play into this kind of a setup a little better, and this is why I suggest playing the Argonian over the High Elf. It's their racial passives. So, looking at the stat pool, you can see we have 64 points in a Magicka. This gives us 34k max Magicka, 21k max health, and 16k max stamina. We have a mag recovery coming in at 1665 with a 661 stamina recovery. Our spell damage is 3150 at max. This thing has almost a 7k weapon and spell damage, not 100% of the time, but about 50% of the time. We have a 45% spell crit with a 5,395 spell penetration, plus we have the weapon crit, weapon physical pen, and weapon damage. If you want to go dual wield on this build, you can, and it does work, but honestly I think it works better the way it's set up. Spell resist is coming in at 1,500 or 15,000, physical 11,000. Moving on down, we have the Thief Mundus Stone. We have this for higher crit chance. We have Major Savagery and Major Prophecy, increasing both weapon and spell crit. And we are using a 1-stat food with a recovery. Now, moving on to the next thing, our gear. Taking a look at food and drinks. Food-wise, the Ghastly Eyeball is really, really good for this build. One, it just gives you Magicka, and it gives you mag recovery. As you can see, we already have 21,000 health. Using other food makes you sustain health-wise better, but in most content, if you're playing in a group, the Ghastly Eyeball is going to be the better option. If you're playing in a group, I would suggest running Clockwork, Citrus Fillet, or Witchmother's Potent Brew. This I would run if I was just doing Overland stuff, because you don't need to worry about as much about recovery as you do when you're in a dungeon or something like that, so this is good for Overland play. Potion-wise, Tri-Stat Pots are really good for this build because you already get Major Prophecy and Major Sorcery, so you get the increased spell crit and the increased weapon and spell damage already, so you don't really need a potion for it. So tripods are really good for this, but if you want to use the spell power pots, you can, and you can also just use regular mana pots. Alright, going over sets. Now, starting with the first set, it's Zons. Zons is a very powerful set. Even though it has a really high cooldown, it is a really powerful set in the right hands, and especially in DK's hands, it's incredibly powerful. So the 1-piece adds spell crit, the 2-piece when you deal damage to a nearby enemy with a light or heavy attack, you have a 33% chance to create a beam of fire that will connect to your enemy as long as you remain within 8 meters of them. The beam deals flame damage every second to your enemy for 6 seconds, and every second this damage increases by 100%. So at the maximum, the last tick, it's going to do 600% more damage. So that 1341 goes up by 600%. And the effect can happen every 18 seconds. Now, the way the set works is when you activate the beam, the cooldown of 18 seconds starts. So after the 6 seconds, you have 14 seconds before it can be reapplied. This is a big damage boost. It has about a 70% uptime throughout most boss encounters, so it's really powerful for that purpose. Alright, next set. Scathing Mage. Scathing Mage isn't a widely popular set. used by a lot of DPS, but it can be in the right hands. And I say that because of how it works. So the 2-piece adds max magicka, the 3 and 4-piece adds spell crit, and then the 5-piece, when you deal direct damage, you have a 20% chance to increase your weapon and spell damage by 5/16 for 5 seconds. This effect can occur every 5 seconds. After thoroughly testing this set has about between an 80 to a 90% uptime. And it just depends on how well you can keep your rotation. If you can keep your rotation good, you can keep a 90% uptime of this. Now, the reason I say 90% is because it has a 20% chance of applying this buff to you. So that means it won't be up 100%, but it will be up roughly between 80 to 90%. And I have had it stay up 90% of the encounter. Alright, moving on to the next set. Now this is where things get a little weird because we are using a 3-piece willpower jewelry set. Now willpower, the 2-piece gives you 1752 max magicka, with the 3-piece adding 206 weapon and spell damage. It does not give you any extra critical chance or anything like that, which is kind of but it's what makes this build work so well. It's that consistent 206 extra weapon and spell damage that makes it work really good. Now, if you are playing a high elf, you're going to get their racial bonus to max magicka, and then you're going to get their weapon and spell damage increase. If you're playing a dark elf, same thing. But the high elf does get the resource return, and whenever they channel an attack, they get defensive capabilities. You're not channeling anything, so... Alright, so we're running the willpower jewelry. Now, the weapons, we're running 2 what are called the enhanced weapon or ability altering weapons. We're running a master staff on the front bar. Now, this drops inside of the Dragonstar Arena, and it's the destructive impact set. Now, you can use a perfected version of this, and it will help out a lot, but even a non-perfected set is really good because of the 2-piece bonus. Reduces the cost of your destructive touch by 10% and increases your weapon and spell damage by 600 for 4 seconds after activating it. You'll see why I chose this staff to be on the front bar. Next up, we have the Maelstrom staff, and this is just a really ungodly staff anyways. A lot of people use this because it's so powerful. It is the crushing wall set, and your light and heavy attacks deal additional damage to enemies in the wall of elements. So it deals 1353 every time you deal a light attack extra to the damage you already do. Now, I haven't figured out myself, but others have probably, to find out if this damage does get increased by other means, like your damage, your critical chance and all that. And if it does, then that's great. This just makes it even more powerful. So really powerful tools altogether. Now, the reason I chose Scathing Rage and the front bar is because when you use Destructive Touch, you're going to get 600 weapon and spell damage for the next 4 seconds. So that means the next 4 seconds of activating abilities with a good rotation, this is really powerful on the front bar. With this giving you another 516, that's over 1,000 extra weapon and spell damage added to the 3150 you already get. And then when you talk about being buffed up for stats, your weapon and spell damage is actually going to be about 3,700. When you add in those 2 600-point increases, basically, the 1,100 extra, this goes up from 3,700, it goes up to like 5,000 and something. And then when you add in other amplifiers, you can actually get it up even higher. And if you have anyone else giving you extra weapon and spell damage through minor courage or major courage, you can reach 7,000 spell damage with little to no problems. And that's what makes this build work so well. This build is a dot build. It's about applying dots and nothing but dots. Alright, so now that I've shown you that, we're going to go over traits and enchants, starting with the monster set. On the helm, we have a reinforced helm with a tri-stat enchant. The tri-stat enchant's there to just give you more resources across the board, so you have more for dodge rolling, breaking free, and stuff like that for stamina. And then on the magicka side, it just increases your damage potential. The max health also helps because it helps you stay in a fight longer. And if you're using like a dual stat food, you're going to get more health from it in the long run. So this is why we have that there. On the chest and legs, we are running 2 invigorating with the tri-stats as well. The 2 invigorating just give you more resource recovery, and I really just have this here for those new players coming into the game that aren't experienced at running the more challenging group content and don't understand resource management in group play. This just allows those players to be able to have their resource management better handled. So you don't need these if you don't want to. Using divines is just fine, even if you want to go divines on every piece here. The reason I went reinforced on the helmet is it is a heavy piece, so it's going to give you the most resistance increase when you use reinforced on it. So using that on the helm is going to make your survivability a little bit better. Not by much, but enough. On the smaller pieces, we're running 4 divines pieces with 4 max magicka enchants. The reason for that is to maximize your magicka pool. Remember what I said about the tri-stats. It's just to give you extra resources so you have them, so you have better sustainability through use of skills, but you also have that sustainability for when you need to dodge or block, or you need to dodge roll, I should say, block or break free. You have that greater stamina pool for that. Alright, moving on to the jewelry now. Now that we have 2 rings and a necklace, the 2 rings are going to be tri-rune. If you don't want to use tri-rune, I would suggest turning these both bloodthirsty. You will lose about 1,000 max magicka, which is fine. But with the 2 tri-rune rings, we have 2 spell damage enchants. Those are going to maximize your spell damage and your damage potential. So that's why we have those there. Moving on to the necklace now. And again, the tri-rune rings are just here to, again, maximize your stats across the board. The necklace is infused with a mag recovery. Now, the reason we're using infused is, again, new players coming into the game aren't going to be able to have the same kind of resource sustain as a veteran player or an experienced player. So the infused is just going to be there for that purpose. And so this is really good for those. And even for those who have trouble sustaining anyways, this build works great for that. But that we want that mag recovery there for that higher magicka recovery, so we can sustain. Basically, this build can sustain indefinitely through a fight, and you will never run out of resources with the way it works. All right, moving on now to the Master Staff. We are running a Nirnhoned Master Staff with a flame damage enchant. The reason Nirnhoned works so good on this build is because it just amplifies your damage. So if you don't know how weapon and spell damage works on a weapon, every weapon in the game has a damage number. That damage number represents either, I shouldn't say either, or either. It represents both your weapon and spell damage baseline. So this 1535 applies to both weapon and spell damage. But you're wanting to make your spell damage as high as possible, so that increases your spell damage to 1535 with the 15% increase to weapon and spell damage, or the weapon damage it does. So you get to the 1535 instead of the 1335 that you get base. So Nirnhoned is going to actually work out better. The fire damage enchant is there to help you apply flame damage, but also to help you apply burning status effect, which you're not going to do a lot with your staff, but it's still there. If it does, it does, and that's good. Moving on to the back bar, we are using the Maelstrom Staff infused with a weapon and spell damage enchant. If you can keep your rotation up, you can keep this weapon and spell damage enchant up 100%. Because what it does is your base activation of a enchant is 5 seconds. This changes it to 3 seconds, so you get every 3 seconds it will reapply the weapon and spell damage. So it will stay up longer and better. This helps you sustain that higher weapon and spell damage all the time. And this is how you can reach that 7,000 weapon damage better in groups, especially if your group's using stuff that boosts, like I said, gives you minor courage and major courage. So that's pretty much it for the gear, food, drinks, traits, enchants, all that. We're going to move on to skills. And talking about skills, we're going to talk about the front bar and the back bar. And then we're going to talk about the passives and why you're going to want these skills and how all this stuff works together. So going over the skills. The first skill we have on our bar is Flame Reach. This is a morph of Destructive Touch. This is a Destruction Staff skill. This deals damage up front. It deals damage over 10 seconds. And enemies hit by the initial hit are affected with the burning status effect. This is important. So this deals damage up front, it deals damage over time, and it's also going to give you 600 weapon and spell damage on the front bar for 4 seconds. Now if you can do a good rotation, you can get through the entirety of your front bar with this application of 600 weapon and spell damage. And it's primarily for the initial hit of your skills. The initial hit of every one of these skills does damage up front, and then it deals damage over time. So this is good. This is going to give you 600 weapon damage on soon as it hits. That means the damage over time is going to get increased by 600 weapon and spell damage. The next ability we have is Flame Damage, or the Burning Embers. This is a Searing Strike morph. It deals flame damage up front, it deals flame damage over 14 seconds, and it heals you for 81% of the damage inflicted when the effect ends. Enemies hit by this are affected by the burning status effect. Why is it good to have 2 burning status effect abilities on your character? Well, I'm going to explain that. The main reason why you want the 2 burning status effects is when you're fighting trash groups, you can hit 2 different enemies and apply that burning status effect. You're going to do it in a rotation anyway, so you hit one, move to the next one, hit the other one, and then you're going to hit them with all of them with AoE. The next ability we have is Engulfing Flames. And Engulfing Flames is a pretty decently powerful skill. One, it does 6k damage up front, and this is, you got to remember, all these abilities scale off your max spell damage. So the damage will increase the higher your spell damage is, so they will deal more damage up front because you have the 516 from Scathing Mage and the 600 from the Master Staff. So these initial hits are going to do a lot more damage, and each of them is going to get extra ticks of damage at that 600. So this is really good. So this does damage up front, deals damage over 14 seconds, and enemies affected take more damage from flame damage based attacks based on your offensive stats to a maximum of 10% bonus damage. Well, it's at 10%. So you're going to deal 10% more damage in your rotation on top of getting all that other damage increases through the weapon and spell damage. This is why you want to have this be your third ability, because you're going to have it activate on the front bar, go to your back bar, apply your back bar, and then go back to your front bar and reapply all your front bar stuff, and this will still be active. That 10% will still be active. Next ability we have is the Scalding Ruin. Now this, what this does is it's like a fire trap. It basically activates after 2 seconds. If an enemy is standing on it, it will activate and it will deal flame damage up front, flame damage over 14 seconds. Now, if you haven't noticed, the front bar has one ability that's 10 seconds long and the other 3 are 14 seconds. This is why this build works so well. One, you get the 14 seconds here, here, and here. This is going to apply a 10-second damage over time. It's going to give you 600 weapon and spell damage on activation when it hits. That means this is going to get 600 weapon and spell damage on its initial hit and 3 seconds of damage. This is going to get it for the initial hit and 2 seconds of damage, and this is going to get it on the initial hit and 1 second of damage. And and most of the time this won't be affected by it, but that's okay because you're going to be doing light attacks in between each one. Next ability we have on our bar is Flames of Oblivion. Now this you're not going to be activating on the front bar, you're going to be activating it on the back bar, and it fires 3 fireballs every 5 seconds, dealing flame damage, and then while slotted you get the Major Prophecy and Major Savagery, increasing weapon and spell crit by 12%, and it scales off your highest offensive stats. So this can scale off your stamina or magicka, or spell damage or weapon damage, or both. So really good. Next ability we have is our ultimate, and this is the Standard of Might. Probably the strongest ultimate in the DK's arsenal. Now, I'm not going to say it's the best, because there are other skills that can work out better to your advantage in different situations, but when it comes to sustained damage, this thing's great. One, it deals damage every second it's active. For 20 seconds, it will do flame damage to an enemy every second in the area, an 8-meter area. It also applies Major Defile to them, reducing their healing received and health recovery. This even applies to boss encounters and NPCs in the game, not just players. Standing in the area increases your damage done by 15% and reduces the damage you take by 15%. So that's really good for you. It increases your damage and it reduces your damage taken. On top of that, it can be activated as a synergy, which shackles enemies, dealing flame damage to all enemies in the area and immobilizing them for 5 seconds. Really great CC group crowd control. Alright, moving on to the back bar. On the back bar, our first ability is going to be Blockade of Fire. This just lays down a wall of fire in front of you that deals damage every second, and that damage is going to be increased by 20%. Or 10% from the front bar, and on top of that, if your Scathing Mage is active, it's going to get 516 extra spell damage, which is really nice. Burning enemies take 20% more damage from this ability. Now remember, your Wall of Elements is going to get more damage increase. It's going to give people 10% more damage to anyone in there that take flame damage, but it's also going to make you do 20% more damage if they're burning. You're going to be able to keep that burning status effect applied pretty much indefinitely. So it's really good for that. Moving on to the next ability, we have Eruption. Now this deals flame damage at the location in an area of effect of 5 meters. It does like an eruption ability. It does big blasted damage and then reduces the movement speed of the enemies in that 5-meter area by 70%, and it deals flame damage every second for 18 seconds. And the eruption damage, the initial hit, can happen every 10 seconds. So if you keep this up, you can keep the eruption damage going off every rotation twice. So it's a big burst of damage that you get every 10 seconds. Next up, we have Channeled Acceleration. Now this isn't a necessity. You don't really need this if you don't want it. If you already can get Minor Force from Warhorn or something like that and it stays up a lot, this isn't necessary. But I like to use this skill because it works so well. You activate it, it takes 1.3 seconds to cast. Once active, you get Major Expedition for 12 seconds and you get Minor Force for 36 seconds. So you can cast this, let it run out its time, recast it. Or let it run out its time till it's down to like 33 seconds, or it has 3 seconds left, recast it, and you can keep this up indefinitely. So you get that Minor Force all the time, that 10% extra damage, critical damage. Next up, we have Molten Armaments. Now this isn't key to the build, but it is essential to the build. The reason for that is it's going to give you Major Brutality and Major Sorcery, increasing both weapon and spell damage by 20% for 36 seconds. But that doesn't apply just to you. It applies to your entirety of your group. So you can boost everyone's weapon and spell damage. The other thing is that your own damage with heavy attacks is increased by 50% while active. This is important for this build, and you'll see why when I show you the rotation. Next up, we have Flames of Oblivion. This is where you're going to activate it. So you're going to keep it active on the back bar. So when you're doing your rotation on the back bar, you're going to activate Blockade of Fire, Eruption, and this, while these two are running their course of 36 seconds. Once they're done, like they're down to 3 seconds, you're going to recast these while doing your rotation and then activate this in the end. Next ability we have on our bar is Fiery Rage. Now this is a pretty powerful AoE, area of effect, 8-meter radius thing, and it deals damage over 7 seconds. Now it deals 9k flame damage every second for 7 seconds. Now the nice thing is that if this crits, anytime within that 7 seconds, you're going to deal almost 20k damage with this every tick. This is one of those things you use in arenas. This is where I primarily use it, is in arenas. I'll drop this and any arena mobs that are in the area just melt. It's pretty powerful. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the skills. I do want to talk about a few passive abilities from the the Dragon Knight Ardent Flame line. One is Combustion. This increases the damage of your burning and poison status effects by 50%. When you apply burning to an enemy, you restore 1,000 magicka. When you apply poison to an enemy, you restore 1,000 stamina. These effects can occur every 5.5 seconds individually of each other. So on the front bar, you're going to be getting 2,000 stamina or magicka back no matter what. Warmth is also really good. When you deal direct damage with an Ardent Flame ability, you reduce the enemy's movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds. So all of these are going to reduce movement speed by 30%, which is nice. Searing Heat increases your damage over time of your Fiery Breath, Searing Strike, and Dragon Knight Standard by 33% for the duration of 4 seconds, increasing the duration by 4 seconds. So that's why these get go up to 14 seconds. And this is already 14 seconds. So this is really nice in that layout. World of Ruin is also nice. This increases your flame and poison attacks by 5%. So you get a 5% increase to your flame damage and poison attacks. Doesn't matter where they come from. And yeah, that's really nice. But I also want to talk about the Destruction Staff. So the other thing I want to talk about with Destruction Staff is Trifocus. Fire Staffs get a really cool thing. Fully charged Inferno Staff heavy attacks deal 12% additional damage. Remember that buff you get where it increases your heavy attacks by 50%? Well, it's no longer 50%. It's 62%. And that's why that's really nice. Another thing is Ancient Knowledge. Equipping an Inferno Staff increases your damage done with single target abilities by 10%. 10%, 10%, 10%. Get my point? Really good for that purpose. And also Destruction Expert, really good. When you kill an enemy with a Destruction Staff ability, you restore 3,600 max magic or of your magicka back. And when you absorb damage using a Destruction Staff, you restore 1,800 magicka, and that effect can occur every 10 seconds. So what it means by absorb damage is any time that you absorb damage, you have a chance of returning, you get this 1,800 magicka back, which is also nice. This is one of the reasons why this build can sustain so well, is every time you apply burning status effect, you get 1,000 magicka back. So this is 2,000 magicka basically off the cost of these abilities. So you're basically spending 1,673 magicka for this, and this is costing you 1,187. So that allows you to sustain your skills better. But then on top of that, you also have this 1,600 magicka recovery that when you have a potion going, your mag recovery goes to 2,075. So every 2 seconds, some of your abilities are going to cost you nothing to cast, because you're getting that return when it happens. So every 2 seconds, you're getting 2,075 magicka back, which basically, like I said, negates the cost of some of your abilities. This will be 1,000 something to cast. This will be 400 something to cast. And it's when that lands that you get that recovery that it makes that happen. So it's really important to know how your resource return works. The other thing I want to talk about is your light armor. Light armor has some great passives. One, it has Prodigy. This increases your weapon and spell crit by 219 for each piece of light armor. You get 1,098 extra recovery. Because you are wearing one medium and one heavy with this build, you're going to get that higher spell crit with using this. On top of that, you're going to get concentration, which increases your physical and spell penetration by 939 per piece. So you get basically 5,000 penetration for free. So that's really good. That's like going through their armor without their armor being there. So it's going to make you do a lot more damage. And most enemies in dungeons have about an 18,000 resistance. So even in arenas. So 18k resistance, this means you just melt them. In Overland, they have 9,000 and something. So you're going to remove over half their resistances in Overland, and you're not even going to, it's not even going to be there. You just melt them. The reason, again, why I chose Argonian, one, they get Life Mender. Increases your healing done by 6%. This is any heal you cast gets increased by 6%. When you use the Burning Embers, and it heals you for 81% of that healing, of the damage it deals in the health, that's going to heal you. And it's going to be a big heal for you because it's 6% increase. On top of that, you have Argonian Resistance. You get higher resistance from disease and poison damage. So any dungeon that you play in or arena that there's poison damage of any kind or disease damage of any kind, you actually increase your physical resistance by 2310. And then Resourceful, you get the 100 magic or 1,000 magicka. This gives you 1,000 health. This gives you 1,000 magicka. But this is when you drink a potion, you get 3,000 of each resource back. This is why I chose the Argonian. It gets a lot of resources out. It can put a lot of resources out, but it can also get a lot back because of its potion use. And you can have your potions reset every 30 seconds. With the high recovery and everything, your sustain is insane. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, the only other thing I want to mention is when you activate Molten Armaments, you not only get the increased weapon and spell damage, but you will also get the Mountain's Blessing, which allows you to give Minor Brutality to your group for 20 seconds, increasing their weapon damage by another 10%. So not only are you giving them a 20% increase in weapon damage, you're giving your stamina DPS 30%. So that's really good. A 30% increase in weapon and spell damage can help your group in many ways. And that's pretty much it for the skills and passives. Now there are a few other passives I do want to mention. Undaunted, you do want to get the Undaunted Command and the Undaunted Metal maxed out. This is going to give you 6% increase to all your stats, your max health, your max stamina, and magicka by 6%. Along with wearing that one piece of heavy armor, you're going to get another 2% from the Juggernaut line. So you're going to get a 8% increase to your max health. That's why your health pool is already high. You're an Argonian, you get another 1,000 health on top of it. When you amplify it by 8%, you get a lot more. So that's pretty important to know. Alright, now let's move on to our champion points. So champion points have been in a weird place lately because of the way they changed them. But in this case, this works to your advantage. So on the green tree, from the green tree, you're going to want Treasure Hunter. This is going to increase the quality of items you find. You're going to want Rationer. This is going to increase the length of time your food lasts. And if you have the passives from the crafting line in provisioning, the Gourmand or Connoisseur, this increases your food and drinks by 20 minutes. So you're actually going to get, on the drink that I suggest, this thing here, it gets 2 hours. Now you can see it says 2.5 hours. It lasts 2 hours and 50 minutes. So that's almost 3 hours of food length that you get. So it makes it a lot easier, and it saves you from consuming a lot of food throughout the course of a dungeon. You only need to activate it once, and you're good to go. The next one is liquid efficiency. This one, whenever you use a potion, you have a 10% chance not to consume it, which is also really nice because 10% chance, you would be surprised how often that happens. Next up, we have Steed's Blessing. This just increases your out-of-combat movement speed by 20%. Moving on to the blue tree, we have Deadly Aim. This increases your single target damage by 10%. Then we have Thaumaturge. This increases the damage you deal with damage over time by 10%. Biting Aura increases your damage done with area of effect attacks by 10%. Now you're using a lot of AoE and damage over time and single target. So this is going to help all that damage be increased. And then last but not least, Fighting Finesse. This increases your critical damage done with healing, critical damage and critical healing done by 10%. You're an Argonian. If you critically heal with the Searing Strike, you critically heal with this. That's what makes it so good. And moving on to the red tree, we have Siphoning Spells. This one restores 1500 magicka whenever you kill an enemy, which is really good. Helps you sustain really easily through dungeons. Survival Instincts. While affected by status effects, your core combat skills cost 5% less per stage. So if you're under a negative effect of any kind, the cost reduction of your abilities is reduced by 25%, saving you resources so you can sustain for longer. Then you have Rejuvenation. This one just increases your health, magicka, stamina recovery by 90 across the board. This helps out to some degree, a little bit, but by a lot. And then you have Slippery. When affected by a disabling effect, you automatically break free for no cost. After using this effect, you become winded and cannot trigger it again for 21 seconds. But that's fine, because you're still going to get this. So it works to your advantage. You can break free and still keep the status effect benefit because you were affected by a status effect. You broke free, you still gain the benefit. So that's really nice. So this does help out when you have the affliction last longer, though. So it's either way. It's up to you how you want to do it. But those are the ones I suggest. And that's pretty much the build. Now I am going to show you the rotation, and I'm going to do it on the super target dummy over here, so you guys can see this. Well, actually, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it on this one. But I would show you what the stats would look like if you were in a really organized group. And they are pretty high, but not something I would gloat about. But let's just say you're fighting an enemy. The way you're going to start your rotation, you're going to start on the back bar. You're going to start by buffing or casting your flames, your fireball thing. Then you're going to cast your buffs to get them going. You're going to start with a light attack. Once you light attack, you're going to drop a wall of elements. You're going to light attack again. Drop your Searing Flames, light attack again, swap bars, go into your Burning Embers or whatever, your Flame Reach. You're going to do that, light attack, Searing Strike, light attack, Engulfing Flames, light attack. Then you're going to drop your Ruin, and then you're going to heavy attack. The reason you're going to heavy attack is, one, you're going to get 50% more damage with that heavy attack, or in this case, 62% more damage with that heavy attack. When you get that 62% on that heavy attack, you can crit upwards to 50,000 damage in one hit. So you don't really need a spammable with this build. And then you go swap bars and start the rotation all over again, but this time you're going to start with the first ability, light attack. This light attack, activate your last ability, light attack, swap bars, and just go through the process again. And then once you get to the heavy attack, you're going to go back. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the full rotation in action with all the buffs going, everything. And when you swap bars, you can see your stuff's already running out on the back bar. Because you took the time to do that heavy attack. Oops. Let me do that. And then when you swap bars, your elements is almost down, so you can keep it up indefinitely. Like I said, you want to be able to get these down to like 3 seconds, your buffs, before you recast them. And it's okay that you do that, so... And you can see I haven't even used a potion yet, and I'm sustaining. But as soon as I drink a potion, bam, I go to almost max magicka. And then I get the 2,000 recovery per tick. So it works out really well. Now, I have done a parse on this over here, and I'm not the greatest parser in the world, but I will show you what I got for a full kill. So this is a full kill on that dummy right there. This right here, the 47,000 DPS, and I killed it in 5 minutes and 26 seconds. I had to reset it though, and the way I did that was by leaving the zone and coming back, and then I got it back to the 21 million. This thing is insane on this. Like I said, I maintain 47,000 DPS, which is really good for somebody like me who's not a super experienced. Well, I am an experienced rotation person, but I can't do rotations good because I have a condition called tremors, which doesn't allow me to keep up a good rotation. So that right there is pretty good for a build. I mean, 47,000 DPS. I know a lot of people are going to say that's not a lot, but in reality, when it comes to a build that doesn't have all the benefits of trial gear, where you're going to get 5% increase in damage to dungeon and trial mobs or arena mobs, and then on top of that, sets that benefit you by boosting your damage even more, of course I'm not going to have that benefit. I'm not going to have that higher damage. If I had a set from a trial or something on this build, I could actually push the DPS a little bit higher, but not by much. And that's because it already gives you a lot of spell damage as it is. So, but yeah, I mean, for a simplistic build, that's pretty easy to put together. I mean, the Master and Maelstrom weapons are going to be the hardest things to get, but now that you can get them on normal, you could do that, and then you could get them on veteran. To get the veteran versions would actually make them more powerful, and then you could also get the, you know, keep the willpower set, and then keep the burning, the scathing mage, and the monster set, and you're set to go, and this build becomes even more powerful. But that's pretty much it for the build. I hope you guys liked it. I enjoyed putting it together. I enjoyed messing with it. I enjoy it in itself. It's an amazing build. And if you're looking for more builds that are fun and roleplay orientated, themed builds, that kind of thing, keep an eye on my channel. I have a lot more coming with those types of builds, and I still have other builds I'm doing for trials and dungeons alike. Roleplay builds are pretty much overland and dungeon play primarily, but you know, you could say that some of my dungeon builds will reflect my roleplay builds, but that's their point, that's their purpose, is they reflect each other. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for the builds, guys, or for this build, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, you guys know what's coming next. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, please subscribe, and if you do subscribe, I do suggest you click that notification bell to be notified when I post new videos. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.